we have a time for a few questions before I invite Professor Dr. Razia Sultana to say a word of thanks. So anybody has a question? So Mursa, can you manage on your side the question? Anybody raise hand? So anyone has a question, please. Dr. Uzma Nawaz looks like she has a question.
Yes. Dr. Saab, I've been listening to all this. Of course, it's very wonderful and one has to put a lot of effort. But what I gather is that at the moment, the faculty needs a lot of extensive training. This is the requirement of the day from what I gathered from the worthy speaker. And the faculty is trying on their own, specifically if I talk of my university as well, in other universities as well. But what we have listened to it, that requires the extensive training of the faculty, focusing on teaching the students how to learn. Because I think at the moment, the faculty has to learn herself a lot of things before plunging into the details of this online teaching and its benefits and the rest. So what should we do about it?
Well, I guess you're absolutely right, because this learning how to learn has to start with the teacher, and there is no shortage of net resources. If you were to just Google there, as far as pedagogy, online pedagogy, or any other kind of keyword that you would have, you would get YouTube after YouTube, papers after papers, and material after material. There are many, many different institutes in the world that are dedicated for this, with wonderful websites, and so what you have is basically an overwhelming amount of learning material. And so the first thing that you have to do yourself is, how do I sift through that? So I think that is where the institution, what it could do is at least prioritize the learning material that is available and say, okay, here are the 3 or 4 items that you should be starting with. As I said, online learning at its very basic means that you're teaching in a classroom and you just have a camera. I know that's how we did it about 30 years back when we were just starting with this thing. But if you start with that, and you just film that person, and then you have different kinds of material to assist you with looking at what are the important characteristics and what are the things that you need to be looking at. So that's where the faculty sitting together, just a group of 3 to 4 people, looking at the net, looking at the resources available. Anybody and everybody can start with that and then build from there. This is a world in which everybody is learning together.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, next question, Mursa. Mursa.
Dr. Umar Jah is.
Dr. Umar Jah, I think.
Dr. Umar Jah.
Thank you very much, Excellencies and Vice Chancellors, for inviting me to join this very wonderful meeting. And we have learned a lot from the speaker. Definitely, we are now challenged, all of us. I have just a question. We know now that the universities, in terms of specialization, are different. For example, I'm leading a university of engineering. And of course, in the social sciences, maybe if I miss the commencement of the conference, maybe I'm sorry if my question has been answered. But we know now that the social sciences, humanities, they're easier in terms of online or virtual education. When it comes to engineering hands-on, if, for example, the COVID continues, because we don't know, we haven't seen yet light at the end of the tunnel. The challenge that we are having is that when it comes to hands-on, there are subjects that are very difficult to handle in terms of online. If now the pandemic continues, that might be an issue of quality assurance. What do you think will be the solution to that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
A very tough question. I am an engineer also. I'm a professor of electrical engineering, and we have a computer science department at our university, and we are asking this very same question for ourselves. If you recall, when I was making the remarks, I said, well, in terms of laboratories, well, that remains a challenge. In terms of teaching of material is concerned, I would say that engineering has an advantage over there, because in many cases we can run simulations, we can allow user controls so that they can see the impact of parameters, whether it is stress, building, inclination, whatever, civil, nuclear, whatever kind of engineering you're dealing with. But an integral part of engineering is the laboratory. And the same is the case of science, or biology, chemistry. You need to see that particular reaction taking place. And in that case, to date, I have not come across, and I don't believe that there is a viable, complete solution to that. So we are thinking in terms of, bringing students one at a time or in smaller groups, keep social distance. Of course, the whole nature of COVID, not the nature of COVID, but our understanding of COVID is evolving. So we're figuring out how much social distance is required, how much precaution is needed. But I don't believe that there is a solution other than getting people into the lab and doing it. There's only so much we can, I know we can connect machines to it, we can simulate some things, and certainly there are all kinds of simulation models that we can do. But a simulation is a simulation, and an engineer has to work with the hand. So there is no solution to that.
Thank you, Professor Naqvi. We have two more honorable colleagues. Professor Bembang Pramujati, Vice Secretary for Research, Innovation, Partnership and Alumni from Indonesia. And of course, we have Professor Shamshad Murtaza, Pro Vice Chancellor, University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh. Yes, Murtaza, next question, please.
Dr. Ishtiaq Ali, sir.
Thank you, Murtaza Noor and Professor Mukhtar. It's always a pleasure to have Professor Sohail Naqvi. I always like to, enjoy his lecture. Dr. Naqvi, I'd just like to ask one thing quickly in continuation of Dr. Umar Jag's, question. You see, there is still uncertainty about the COVID. In US, there are the news they are going to continue online education for next semester till February, probably the earliest, next year. So how to do, because this workshop was basically having two components. One was teaching skills, another was on assessment, assessment of online teaching. So there is a big challenge across the world regarding the assessment of online teaching, particularly in the taught programs. So how you see what steps can be taken to make assessment more effective, and particularly as a teacher point of view, I like to say it's a plagiarism or cheating less with the minimum possibility.
Okay. I'm glad you asked that question, because my point of view on this is very different to the norm. And in that, I don't want to talk about plagiarism at all. In the sense that we are going to have the students study with us, and they're going to graduate and go out into the world. You are not going to go with them. They're going to get a job the next day, and then they have to do their work, right? And they will have to do that work themselves. So if we have not built in and strengthened their inner ethical system, then we will have to ask ourselves this question: did we succeed in producing the graduate that we should have produced? And so I think that we have to put a bigger challenge to ourselves, and also think higher of students. I've done this experiment in class where I say to them, look, it is I am going to place my trust in you, and I'm going to put my faith in you. And you will get some people who will be cheating, but the whole point is that we have to work toward them becoming a pariah. I taught in the US, and whenever I taught classes in the US and I gave people exams, I used to go to my office because I didn't want to waste that 30 minutes just sitting and staring into the walls over there. I would start it, answer the initial questions, then go to my room, work, and come back. You didn't assume that the students would cheat. We did that in different universities in Pakistan as well. And wonder of wonders, our students are no different to anybody else. When you put the trust on them, they will deliver. Of course, there is the other mechanisms also, that you just give them the worst of all type of exams from the student point of view. You give them an open book exam. Say, okay, go ahead, do whatever the heck you want. There are other opportunities where you can give individual exams, especially true for engineering and scientific type of subjects there. But I think that at the bottom line, we as educators have to challenge ourselves that we have to produce an ethical student who will not look at the shortcut, because the world out there afterwards, first of all, is going to deal with that student very ruthlessly if they're going to do shortcut. You cheat and you're out, and that's the end of it. That reputation goes and you're gone. So let's help, create that next brand, next type of student. You're on mute, Dr. Mukhtar.
Yes. We have a question in the comment section from Professor Dr. Ashraful Haq from Bangladesh, I believe. And the question is, the stakeholders are raising question about quality with simulation or video demo of hand-to-hand experiment. So how that can be improved? That's the question.
Well, I believe this was a question that Dr. Jha had also raised. I think it relates to experiments and what is the alternative to experiments that we can have. Now, all of us who are scientists of one type, of another, recognize that we build simulation models. My own research work, I looked at light interaction with material and built models of how laser beams would be interacting with surfaces. And then you compare that with experiment. So there is a world out there of building simulation models, whether you're creating new materials. There is a whole world of whether it is synthetic biology, synthetic chemicals, but it has its limitations, but it does exist. We have to live with those limitations because you have computing speed as a limitation. You may not understand the complexities of everything. And then as an electrical engineer, I would say, what kind of simulation is there if there's no noise? Because the noise is the randomness. You don't know what the heck is going to happen, how you're going to respond to that. Of course, then you can also simulate all of those, but then the models become more and more complicated. It's difficult to come across. So it will depend. It varies from subject to subject. Sometimes great simulation models will exist, especially at a lower level. Other times, you really have no option.